All right, let's look at the answers from exercise set 8.8. In this, we want to suppose that P is true, Q is false, R is true, and S is false. What's the truth value of each of the compound sentences? So what we want to do here, luckily we don't have to make a full truth table, but we do want to make a partial truth table. So I'm going to press insert, and I'm going to do a table, and I'm going to put 4 columns because we have P, Q, R, and S, so we need 4, and we only need 1 row, well, 2 rows because we need like the title row, P for P, Q, R, and S. And then we just need 1 row because instead of having to put all the possible truth combinations, like what happens when they're all true, what happens when 1 is true and 3 are false, what happens when, we just need to know the case when P is true, Q is false, R is true, and S is false. And then, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this because we're going to use the same one for each of the problems. So I'm going to copy this, Control copy, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. Sorry you have to sit there and watch me, but hopefully you're working along with it at the same time so it's not boring. And just pause the video if you need more time. All right, so I'm going to use that same. That's for all of the question sets. Those are the truth values we want to know. And then for each, I will just insert columns. Oops, columns to the right. Insert column to the right to see whether it's true or false. So we want to know if Q or S is true or false. For Q or S to be true, the overall sentence, we need at least Q or S to be true. S is false and Q is false. So this compound sentence is false. And maybe I'll highlight that so, you know, we can make it blue so it's easy for me, the grader, to see if you got the right answer. All right, look, here we're going to need to start inside the parentheses. And how many? We're going to need 1 more column, 2 for this inside the parentheses, and for the overall sentence. So we're going to need 3 columns. Insert, column to the right. There's probably a faster way to do this, but column to the right, insert, column to the right. All right, we want to know P and Q, because we always start inside the parentheses. I want to know our truth value of R and S, and then we can figure out the truth value of the overall compound sentence. All right, P and Q. We need both P and Q to be true, but it is not. It's false, right? Because Q is false, so P and Q is also false. R and S, same. S is false, so the overall, that is false. Now we just need 1 of these to be true. 1 of these disjuncts. Either P and Q, well, that one's false. This one's also false, so neither one are true, so the overall sentence is false. Just make it easy on me when I'm grading it. All right, here we're going to need how many? Think about it as you're looking. How many columns are we going to need for this one? Insert column to the right. If you said 2, you are correct. Start inside the parentheses. We need to know that. Which says if S, then R. And then we need to know this overall conditional. So if S, then R. S is false. When the antecedent is false, the overall conditional is true, no matter what, because it's like saying if pigs can fly, well, pigs can't fly, so whatever, that sentence just kind of automatically becomes true. That's the one trick you have to remember. All right, if P, then, so P is true, so if P is true, then the consequent is also true. That matches, so that is true. Make sure I'm not doing this too fast and that I am making silly mistakes. insert column to the right. We're going to again need how many? 2 more columns, because we're going to want to know first what's inside the parentheses, look at the truth value of that, then we can look at the truth value of the next step. If R, then S. R is true and S is false. That is the only time a conditional is false, when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false. All right, so now we want to know the overall truth value. If P is true, but the consequent here is false, as you can see. So when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, again, the overall conditional is false. All right, how many? Test yourself. Look at this. How many columns do you think you're going to need? Insert column to the right. Insert column to the right. R and S. And then we're going to want to know the overall, not R and S. All right, so we need R and S to be true. Oh, but look, S is false, so they're not both true. So that is false. Now the not of that is just going to be the opposite of whatever we just put here, which is true. So the overall sentence is true. All right, let's see if we can do some of these quickly. Test yourself. How many columns do we need to insert? How many steps do we need? We're going to need 2. If Q, then P, and then the overall conjunction. All right, if Q is false. Now, when the antecedent is false, what happens? It is automatically true. We don't even need to look at P. All right, R and. So we need both of these to be true. Well, this one is true. What about R? Is R true? If both are true, yep, it is. Then the overall sentence is true. All right, this one is a little tricky. It's not tricky. I'm sorry. Here's how I do the biconditional. The biconditional merely says, to the right, that both of these are true. If Q, then S, and if S, then Q. So it's like a conditional that goes both ways. So I'm going to break that apart for you. So if Q, then S, I'm going to type these. And I should have used lowercase letters, but here we are. I'm sorry. You should be consistent in logic. If S, then Q, but you know, it's completion. I won't take off for myself for being inconsistent here. All right, if Q, then S, and we also want to know if S, then Q. So the overall conditional, another way to write it is like this. If Q, then S. I just did it, and I always use the upper arrow, but I know the book uses the dot for and, so let me just copy and paste the dot. And if S, then Q. So we need both of those to be true. Oops, sorry. Bothers me not to have them on the same line, so I'm gonna fix that. Okay, if Q, then S. Look, Q is false. So we can know without going any further that the overall conditional, oh, oops, I keep doing that. It's true. When the antecedent is true, the overall conditional, when the antecedent is false, the overall conditional is true. All right, if S is false, so that automatically means the overall conditional is true. And we need both of those to be true. Well, we just saw they're both true, so the conjunction is true. All right, insert column to the right. Insert column to the right. This should start to feel familiar, I hope, as you practice. Start inside the parentheses. If Q, then P. Q is false, so automatically the conditional is true. If P, then this. Okay, P is true, so we need the consequent to be true as well. It is, so it's true. I'm forgetting to highlight my answers, but I will at the end. All right. We are again, oh, this one, how many, test yourself, how many columns is this one gonna need? Insert column to the right. The tricky part here is that we do need another column for the not Q, and that's where we're gonna begin here. Not Q. Q here is false, so not Q is true. And now we can add two more. Insert column to the right. Insert column to the right. Now we want to know if Q or not Q. I mean, you could take a quick step and see that that's going to be true. Is Q or not Q true? At least one of those has to be true. Of course, that's going to be true. It's actually a tautology. And now we want to know if P, then that. So P is true, and the consequent is also true, so that is indeed true. All right, almost there. How many are we going to need for this? Column to the right. Insert column to the right. Insert column to the right. All right. P or Q. We need at least either the P column or the Q column to be true. P or Q. That one of those is true. P is true. So that overall sentence is true. That part of the sentence. R or S. We need either the R column or the S column to be true. Well, the R column is true, so that is fine. And now for the overall. If this, then this. So we're going to look at those two columns and see. They are both true. So the antecedent is true and the consequent is true. So the overall thing is true. And I'm going to go back and highlight in some way all my answers so I can see them. I'll do that off screen. I hope this helps.